Dr. Anthony Fauci, now referred to the DOJ for criminal investigation. We knew this was heading here. He accused of lying under oath to Congress about his knowledge of the U.S.-funded COVID research in Wuhan.
Knowing that it is a crime to lie to Congress, do you wish to retract your statement of May 11th where you claimed that the NIH never funded gain-of-function research in Wuhan?
Senator Paul, I have never lied before the Congress, and I do not retract that statement. You do not know what you are talking about.
Really? Senator Rand Paul filed the criminal referral and joins us now. Senator, you've been all over this. You've been aggressive. You've been determined. It seems we're at the threshold to the point where you called Matt Graves and said, I need you to look at this. What turned the tables for you? What evidence do you have?
Well, I don't think there's ever been a clear case of perjury in the history of government testimony. And I don't say that lightly. He said adamantly that the government never funded this gain-of-function research. We now have the Government Accountability Office, the GAO, has admitted that the funding came from the NIH. We have the acting director, Tabak, of the NIH, admitting it in writing that it came from the NIH. But now we have really the smoking gun, and that is Fauci in private saying the opposite of what he was saying in public. When he was publicly telling me that absolutely we did not fund gain-of-function research in China, he says privately, we are suspicious that the virus has been manipulated, and we are suspicious because we know they are doing gain-of-function research. He then goes on to describe the research, and it's exactly the research that the NIH funded. So he's caught dead to rights here, but we have an incredibly partisan Attorney General Garland who's refusing to act. So I've taken the extraordinary step of actually going to the local U.S. attorney in D.C. to see if he will act. Now, the problem is there are partisans littered throughout the legal system, and people are seeing this. You don't get prosecuted if you're a Democrat under this administration, no matter what you do.
And one of the lines in the internal communication that were recovered was, Tony doesn't want his fingerprints on any origin stories. Why would that be?
Well, because ultimately culpability attaches. Think about it. 1 million Americans died. This is one of the biggest events, in our lifetime, other than, the wars that we've been through. But in my lifetime, this is 1 million people. In Vietnam, as horrible as it was, 60,000 something, I think, was the total death toll. But 1 million people died. More people died than in the Civil War. And if it came from a lab that we funded, wouldn't we want to know? And if someone made the decision, and here's what in all likelihood happened. There was a safety committee that was supposed to review dangerous research and decide whether or not we should fund it. Fauci went around the committee. He won't admit it, but I think ultimately there's going to be written proof, and I think the House is going to get this if we continue to look into their records, because the government is holding these records tightly, but evidence that Anthony Fauci took this dangerous research and said, no, if they get an exemption, they don't have to be reviewed by the committee to see if it's dangerous. And so they were mixing viruses together to see if they were more transmissible in humans or more dangerous in humans. And it turns out they found that they could create viruses that were more dangerous.
Yeah, some platypus and bat in a cave? Or was he really as concerned as us and had many doubts about that story as we did? One of the quotes from the internal communication was, there were mutations in the virus that would be most unusual to have evolved naturally in the bats, and there was a suspicion that this mutation was intentionally inserted. That doesn't sound like a guy who's trying to tell you it didn't come from a lab leak, right?
And exactly a month later, in a paper that was being written at exactly the same time, in public they say, absolutely, that this virus was not a construct of a laboratory. So in private, they're saying it has all the hallmarks of being created in a lab. In public, they're saying it absolutely didn't. And then they were attacking people like myself and others, other scientists as well. They were attacking us and saying we were conspiracy theorists, while in private they're saying this is no conspiracy theory. This is a real thing, and it's the most likely thing that happened. So this is a real definition of a conspiracy, of a cover-up, and we're going to get to the bottom of this because we need to try to make sure this doesn't happen again, and they're still funding this type of research.